I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence from CGE. SETI is a 1-4 player mid-weight Eurogame that plays out across 5 rounds in which the players are ultimately trying to search for, well, extraterrestrial intelligence, as the name might imply. Although despite the fact that you're doing that in this game, that's not ultimately how you win. You win by trying to get points. It just happens to be along the way, you're probably going to end up finding alien life. Now, I will not be doing a full rules overview on this one. It folds together nicely as you start to play, but I do find it can be a bit much, but I'll still give you a general overview, and then of course my thoughts and opinions, links and timestamps to everything down below. In SETI, like I said already, you'll be playing across 5 rounds. In the game, you're going to be managing your own personal display as far as how you power up your own personal board over here, but then you're managing this giant galactic map over here, which has a randomizer setup, which you can use the app or just follow certain rules, but then ultimately you're trying to send your satellites out into the galaxy to gather data. You see, we have 2 aliens per game. The core game comes with 5. I say core game because by the time I'm reviewing this, they've announced that there's an expansion coming that I'm very excited about. No spoilers to my thoughts and opinions. There's an expansion coming, which will have more alien races. But in the core game of SETI, there are 5 alien races. You are only going to interact with 2 of those each game. We have race 1 and race 2. As you uncover these races, and again we'll talk about how you do it in a second, it's going to introduce new rules and new ways of getting points, and then the best part's new fun decks of cards that give you fun things to do in the game. But along the way, you have to try to uncover that data. To that end, you get that data from 3 core aspects. The first is going to be launching your satellites into space and then sending them around to orbit to land on various planets. The way you do that is each satellite launches at Earth. Eventually, it travels to a certain planet, and there are all these actions as far as how you do that, but then once it's at a planet, you can either land on the planet or orbit the planet. Orbiting the planet will often help your tableau. So if I send this to orbit Jupiter, I can send this over here to Jupiter, and I'll get 3 points as the first one there, because I'm orbiting the planet. These planets over here correspond to the planets on the board, but then I'll also get all of these benefits, as will any other player who also sends a satellite to orbit the same planet. So you want to be first at planets. You're going to want to be first at everything, so a little bit of that over there. Once you do that, or not specifically once you do that, you can also, instead of orbiting a planet, you can choose to land on a planet. You can land on Jupiter instead, at which point, again, you'll get something because you were the first one there, but then everyone will get all of these things, in this case 7 points, and I can get a data point of the yellow type over here, which can go towards uncovering and unlocking a new alien race. Once you have 3 different types of data, regardless of who supplied them, that alien race will be uncovered. So again, satellites get sent out to the distant space where they can orbit a planet to help your tableau, or land on a planet to help uncover the races. There's also all these moons you can land on around these planets, although that will require technology. We haven't heavily talked about technology yet, but a lot of rules can be broken through the use of technology, including landing on moons, and cards. There's some cards that'll let you break that stuff too. Anyways, that's the core aspect of getting data type number 1, send out a satellite, land on a planet. I should also note that it's cheaper to land on a planet if anyone has a satellite already there. It's also cheaper to land on a planet if you, again, buy one of the technologies that makes it cheaper, so you can manage your economy better because money will be tight in the game throughout the whole game, but especially in those early rounds. Which brings us to number 2. Number 2 is going to be scanning. You can also scan. It's going to be one of those whole little player aid full of actions. I'm not going to be going through every single one, but I'm trying to cover the general notes of what you're doing in this game. Core action number 2, scan. You can scan various sectors and gather data. When you scan, you're going to look where Earth is pointed at, and you'll also discard a card from the general display, and that will allow you to put out 2 data points of your own while gathering data. So for example, if I scan from here, I pay the scanning cost, which is 2 energy and $1. I discard a card from the display, and that's going to let me choose a sector. Let's say I actually want to get one in the red sector over here, so I'm going to do 1 in the sector that Earth is pointing at, and replace this and take that, and put my own there, and then I'll also do a red one, and I'll go ahead and do it over here, replacing this one, getting presence into those zones. That's going to do 2 things. The first is it gets me data. The reason that's relevant, and then we'll refill the display as well. The reason the data is relevant is once you have this full row of data filled up, because you can at any point start filling up your display with these data, gaining the bonuses along the way. And yes, these little slots here are for these blue technologies, which will give you more points and bonuses as you fill up this row. But when you complete the row, you'll go ahead and get a blue data that can go into those spots and again work towards those alien races. So scanning sectors gets you data, data turns into the blue data over there, which can unlock an alien race. The third kind you get by fully scanning a sector. When a sector is fully scanned, regardless of who has contributed to that, so when other players contribute to a sector as well, you're going to put whoever has the most in a a sector is going to put a token up there, and then you're going to get a data, which again goes towards unlocking an alien race. Once you have those 3 for over here, and again, you can put them on the other side as well, there's fewer points, but then again, it's still helpful to get there. You will then unlock that alien race, revealing which alien race you are dealing with, which you otherwise don't know until you get to that part of the game. So each of the 5 alien races introduces new rules, new adjustments, again, new decks of cards, different things that will be added to the game, but only once that alien race is unlocked and shown, and that's when players can start planning around the new things that are coming their way. So again, as a general note, you're trying to unlock these races. You're going to get points along the way for basically everything. You get points for unlocking those data over here. You get points for going to these moons and orbiting them. You get points for landing on planets. You can get giant chunks of points for landing on these moons over here. You're going to get points for exploring the alien board further, which again, all these chunks of points you can get as you go through those. There's just everything is giving you points. It's your job to manage those points as efficiently as possible. Speaking of other things that give you points, there's a whole bunch of stuff. We're just going to cover a few, but you have these goal tiles over here where players, once their score marker during the game hits certain key points, you can unlock scoring metrics for having certain things, for accomplishing certain goals, but first come, first serve in the sense that you can get a point multiplier for what you did, but the first you're there, the higher you get. For example, going over here, which is rewarding you for having sets of the 3 different technologies, you can get 11 points per set, or you can get 5 points per set, depending if you're first, second, or third, although that third is really third and fourth as well. You're also going to get points from cards. Tons of cards in the game will give you different ways of earning points. This one's going to give you 2 movement, but if you visit a comet this turn, that's one of those, you'll also get 4 points as well. Lots of things in this game are also going to give you publicity as you wander around, as your satellite moves through space, landing on comets or even passing a comet, landing on planets. You're going to move your publicity marker up over here, which gives you general publicity with the public, and that's going to allow you to cash that in to gather technologies. Technologies generally will come to you either from cards you play or from having 6 publicity and then reducing your marker to 0 and taking any one of these technology tiles. Those are going to give you different ways of breaking the game, as well as a one-time bonus, and if you're the first one to take that particular technology tile, you're also going to get 2 points. And again, points are very helpful because they'll give you first come, first serve access to all these scoring metrics. This is one of those games where you're always, in any game you play, you're juggling in-game points versus end-game points, but in this game, in-game points will directly translate to higher end-game points because of that first come, first serve basis. That's the general idea of what you're doing in SETI. In SETI, you're going to play 5 rounds. On each turn, you take an action. An action very commonly is going to involve playing a card, but there are other direct actions you can just pay for that thing, such as scanning a sector, launching a satellite. Those are all things you can do from cards, often more efficiently, but you can often just pay for them as well, so you're guaranteed to have access to whatever it is you're trying to do. You're going to be managing your economy. You'll start off with a basic income. You have ways of improving that. For example, these spots over here will allow you to take a card from your hand underneath your starting card, gaining additional income, both when you play it as well as on future turns. When you pass, you're going to be managing these pools of cards where you can look through the current round's deck and be the first person to select whichever card you want to help out your engine, getting that first come, first serve, but at the cost of passing out of the round. That's the general high-level overview of what's going on in SETI, and you're just trying to figure out the most optimal way to get points, which is along the way going to uncover the alien races you are engaging with. With that, I'm going to go ahead and dive into my review of what I like, don't like, can see others not liking, starting off with what I like. Starting off, CGE in general has an excellent habit that I'm a big fan of putting out games that look beautiful. From the art to the components, their games look amazing. SETI is no exception. The box is beautiful, vibrant, very much giving off those Arnak vibes of the sheer amount of color going on here. Very different game than Arnak, some traces of similarities, but very different game than Arnak, but giving the beautiful production aspect of it. Again, colorful, vibrant, great art, and great components all deliver this experience on your table. And the path to victory in this game is going to be, there's so many things you can do. There are so many things you can do in this game as far as how you explore your own unique point engine in the game. You can be launching satellites left, right, and center to try to improve your economy in the game, which is going to give you a late game spiral on points at the cost of that early game presence, which again can cost you on those goals. Or alternatively, you can start scanning sectors left, right, and center to try to get that area control locked in so you're the the first person to get all those extra data points, as well as getting the extra points for being second to scan a sector, gathering data. When you scan a sector, you're basically working your way towards two things at once, versus satellites are only working your way towards one of the 3 data points, but alternatively giving you those extra bonuses, as well as landing on things that will really help out your engine as you go. And everything is going to matter as far as those cards you play. This deck is gigantic, completely gigantic over here. Every single one being a unique card that gives you some different way it interacts, a different cost, a different combination of things on it, and they're going to give you different missions on them. We haven't even talked about the fact that there's going to be cards that give you missions that you can complete as well, and sometimes those missions will also tie in to these bonuses over here, which will want you to reward for missions as well. The variable text you have in the game that give you all, again, that small little edge as far as that developed asymmetry. Do you want to be the first person who can have 2 satellites on the board at the same time, giving you a little more flexibility? Because I haven't even talked about this yet, but throughout the game, as you gather, well, a few things will trigger this, but gathering text will do this, the mission marker over here, you're going to basically have these spots on the board rotating, so the galaxy is going to be changing and moving satellites with them. Do you want the flexibility of having 2 satellites that are constantly moving around in space along with things going on over there? Do you want to be unlocking your data track over here so you can gain extra money, which money is going to be very hard to come by, getting those 2 points, getting that 1 card, and then constantly having access to more money as you scan various sectors? Alternatively, speaking of scanning sectors, do you want to be the first person who can go ahead and get extra sectors scanned with each action? These 2 tiles over here are going to give you different ways to get more data out there as you scan, making your actions more efficient. At a cost, you'll have to pay publicity or cards from your hand, but you can scan 4 sectors at once, which gives you a ton of flexibility. Speaking of flexibility, this spot over here lets you scan from a sector adjacent to Earth as well. Again, giving you more flexibility to get your tokens where you need, especially compelling for that area control puzzle of things. You're trying to balance all of this, and you also are trying to balance being first in everything. First to a technology gets you those points over here. First over here gets you higher points. First to a planet gets you, first to orbit a planet gets you extra points. First to land on a planet gets you extra data. Everything in this game that you're first on will give you more control over what's going on. And then we haven't even talked about the mid-game alien races, because there's 5 different alien races in the game, all giving you not major game-breaking rules, but some slight shift or pivot to what's happening in the game as far as extra things you need to be mindful of as you try to balance everything. But then my favorite part is the extra decks of cards. They're going to give you these little symbols over here are ways to get extra cards from their unique decks, which give you powerful cards that break the rules in further ways. But often, again, you're trading. Do you want more points or do you want those cards? Which one's going to be more helpful to you, especially when you're managing a game that's going to constantly have you incredibly tight on resources, so your energy and your money is in short supply, and you have to figure out where you can most efficiently spend it to get everything you need out of this puzzle. Overall, there's just a ton of things going on that make you feel rewarded for how you progress in the game and how you're trying to earn your points, all while you build up your tableau and get more powerful across those 5 rounds. As far as things I don't like in the game, there's going to be 2 things. The first is the area control of data on these spots over here. I didn't love that as much. I found that often, especially, again, it's going to depend on player count as well. This is actually one of the few areas that I almost preferred in a 2-player game, but I think that the 2-player game is the weaker version of the game, because there's ways to kind of have the alien races slowly unlock more to compensate for missing players, but I do feel the 2-player game is weaker, which is an interesting tangent to tell you that part, while telling you the one part that I like better at 2-player, which is the area control of these points over here. Because as you get various tokens out over here, you're rewarded in a whole bunch of different ways, including the fact that you're getting data no matter what on your personal board. But ultimately, getting the most tokens in a zone can be a big difference in terms of who's doing well in the game, who's getting extra presence on these point scoring areas over here, so you do want to have the most in a zone. But very often it comes down to, did someone else go there first and trigger the spot? There's almost a degree of kingmaker to someone else getting the second last spot, which allows the next person in turn order to get the last spot, and that can really just come down to what happens based on turn order, and not really your opportunity to account for it, if that makes sense. So I found the area control puzzle my least favorite part of what you're trying to manage, although it still very much does tie into, again, you want to be first in everything, you want to be on top of everything, and you just have to keep it in mind as you play. That, to me, though, is a small nitpick. Honestly, the player count is also a small nitpick. I don't mind a game that's better at 3 or 4 players, because, well, first of all, these types of games I generally play at 3 or 4 players. I do think 4 players is probably the best, but it does come with the other nitpick I have, which is less of a nitpick and more of a big deal to me, which is SETI is a longer game. The box, I believe, advertises at 40 minutes per player. 40 minutes per player is what the box says, and I do think you can get it down there, but I think that requires, first of all, having multiple games under your belt, and also players who are diligently trying to have a faster game. For me, SETI so far has been in that 3-hour range. On the low end, it comes in as a 3-hour game, and in the first game I played, we didn't even finish SETI. We played for like 3-4 rounds and then called it because it was already trending towards way too long. But it does get better as you play it, especially if players know what's going on. But it still is a game that does feel a little bit longer than what I personally want out of it. I have seen players say you can play to a 4-round game and still get a very satisfying experience out of it, and I do believe that's true, especially since my first game of SETI was only 3 rounds and I had a blast playing that. But nonetheless, I do think I prefer the 5-round game. But it does, well, I say 5-round game as if there's a 4-round game. There's not. That's just players' house ruling that a 4-round game is enough to be satisfying, which I think it is. But I prefer the 5-round game enough that I'll deal with that longer length. But the length certainly is a factor, especially coming off of Lost Ruins of Arnak, which is, again, a while ago by now. But this is a game that mentally I'm comparing in terms of CGE's beautifully produced Eurogames. I think Arnak delivers an excellent experience in a much shorter playtime than SETI does. As far as what I can see others not liking, it's a little bit of a table hog, not crazy as far as the table goes. Again, this is the board and then one player over here, but it definitely is on the slightly larger side. The early turns additionally can feel like you're getting very little done. It has that aspect, not to, once again, compare it to Lost Ruins of Arnak, but it has that aspect where the first round you're going to get like 2 or 3 things done and be like, well, that didn't feel like a lot, and that will escalate as you go. You're just going to get slightly more efficient in ways that just slightly add to how much you can get done as you play through it. It is going to escalate nicely, but the first rounds can definitely feel a little starved and like you're not getting enough done. Additionally, the alien races do come out with mid-game rules, which for me is not a big deal because the rules aren't that big a deal, especially if you have players who know what the alien races do. They can feed into the game pretty quickly as far as things go, but if you don't like mid-game changes to the game, or even trying to plan around not knowing what's going to happen, I can see players being frustrated by that. And then lastly, I'll say that this moving rotation aspect, which is a very unique aspect of the game as far as the different levels of the board rotating, that's to me is something, well, I'm rotating the wrong way over here, sorry about that. That to me is something that adds to the charm of the experience, but you might not like getting shoved or pushed or moving out into space with a certain game plan, only to have the various rotation of the universe, of the planets, get in the way. As far as final thoughts on SETI, I really like this game. But I really like this game with the knowledge that, I don't know, there was a game once I played where it was a 4-hour-long game. It's actually his alma mater. Okay? It was alma mater. Ironically, the person who taught me SETI is the same person who taught me alma mater. But I remember playing a game of alma mater, which was an excellent experience, but it was a 4-hour game when Coimbra, the game that was the spiritual predecessor, or I guess alma mater is the spiritual successor, but either way, Coimbra to me delivers a better experience in 2 hours, which just took alma mater off the table as a game that I cared to own because it was great, it was amazing, but it was just a longer version of what Coimbra was able to do better in a shorter time frame. And that to me is SETI's greatest weakness. The question of, okay, great, it's amazing because it is amazing, but is it amazing enough equal to the length? And for me, I still think yes. I still think yes, at least for right now. SETI is so much fun as far as trying to figure out your pathway forward. And the cards keep it completely unique. But then the alien races add further uniqueness to the experience that mix it up even further. So overall, to me, this is a game that delivers an experience that is worth the time, but it is slightly harder to make time for. I'm coming in at a 4.5 out of 5. It would get a 5 out of 5 if not for how long the experience is, but it is a little longer. Again, depends what you're comparing it to. Everything depends on what you're comparing it to. But compared to the types of mid-weight Euro experiences that I tend to enjoy, I do find that SETI is a little bit outside that time range, especially for first-time players, but even as you get used to it. But for me, outside of that, it is a brilliant game, beautifully produced, very satisfying to play through again and again, and to find different pathways forward and different ways to get a little bit more out of it. And I mentioned the expansion earlier, but I'm incredibly excited for the expansion too, that supposedly has, well, additionally has alien races, but it has like quick start modes, it has asymmetry, there's all these things going on, and if those quick start modes in any way make the game at all faster, that could easily bump this to a 5 out of 5, but we'll save that review for a different day, because that's not out yet. In any case, SETI, a 4.5 out of 5, well worth your time. If you're looking for other game recommendations, definitely check out Lost Ruins of Arnak. I mentioned it several times throughout this. It's hard not to compare them there. There's some similarities, lots of differences, but ultimately, I do think that that turning a little bit into a little bit more, into a little bit more, and trying to see how far you can stretch your turns, that feeling, combined, of course, with the publisher, production, all that, that feeling very much is present. If you like SETI, I think you'll appreciate that aspect of Lost Winds of Arnak, and it delivers it in a shorter time frame, pros and cons to those experiences. And then separately, this also reminded me a bit of Revive. I don't know exactly why, but definitely check out Revive. I think it's an excellent Euro game that's going to, again, deliver you a nice, tight engine game as you develop your engine, asymmetric factions, as you explore the board. It has that exploratory aspect going on where players can combine to search for things, but then try to take advantage of it for their own engine. Definitely an excellent game that I highly recommend you check out. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.